Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Little Acts of Kindness. This will be Part 96, Chapter 96, entitled Dinner, Blood, and Venom. Izuku was exhausted. His head was pounding, and his stomach was still a bit weird feeling, even as the shadow dragon was no longer visible, retreated into him wherever it disappeared to when it wasn't outside of him. He was going to need to find some time to talk to the new quirk, to figure out if it was like Dark Shadow and preferred they-them pronouns or something else. Also, it might be confusing to have two Dark Shadows, so maybe he should name his. Something he would have to consider later. He and the other students were now on a bus, their teachers having come and congratulated them. They were being led back to UA. According to Aizawa-sensei, they would be getting fed, getting checked over and healed by Recovery Girl. Then they would be sent home to rest up for the day. Izuku was leaning against the window, yawning a bit. After a while, the bus came to a halt and they got off, heading into the cafeteria. He sat with his friends, the other classmates scattered around. Lunch Rush was cooking the food as they chat, though Izuku was mostly just listening to the ongoing conversation. Right now, Uraraka was rambling about how terrifying he had been, and Izuku flustered, burying his face in his hands. "In the way that you made the smiley face so threatening, it was awesome! You organized—" She fell silent as a teacher spoke up. "Can I get a yeah, listeners?" "Yeah!" students shouted back. He perked up when he heard Yamada-sensei's voice. He looked over, relieved to see the man, the hero who had stood up for them. "Mike-sensei!" A chorus of cheers called out, following yeah from Class 1A. And Izuku wasn't the only one who had scrambled to get up, crowding around the man. Class 1B was a bit slower, but they still got up and came over, happy to see their English teacher. "Whoa, little listeners," he said, laughing. "That's quite a welcome back," he said, giving a smile and finger guns at them. "I got something for y'all, since a certain someone who shan't be mentioned decided to trash them," he said, lifting the box he was holding up higher. Izuku tried his best not to immediately break out into tears, as Yamada handed out jewelry necklaces, looking the same as the ones he had originally given them. Izuku held the capture-looking necklace up and smiled. Yamada really was an amazing teacher. "Now, I hope Yagi-san hasn't been too terrible of a teacher." Yagi looked mildly offended at that. "So make sure you study up, because we'll be getting back into the groove tomorrow, yeah?" He cheered, shooting finger guns at the crowd. "All right, that's enough," Recovery Girl said, looking at Yamada. "Go sit down," she said to the students, mainly looking at him, Ashido, Koda, and Kirishima, given they haven't really had a chance to rest from the Civil War exercise. The class went to take their seats, and the heroine came around, talking with them, checking them over, and healing up any injuries. Soon, Lunch Rush and the other teachers were bringing them food. After about 15 minutes of eating, there was a clapping sound. "May I have your attention, please?" Silence fell over the students as they looked at the principal and a put-upon-looking Aizawa. Their dark-haired homeroom teacher had the principal using his shoulder and head as a podium. "Thank you. I'm sure many of you know that the villain team won, but we will be going through footage and grading each of you individually as well. I saw so many good moves pulled by both heroes and villains. Please take the rest of today to rest and recover, and give thought to your experience. There are many things that can be learned from reflecting back. What actions could you have done differently? Were there signs you could have noticed or taken action on? Did you find yourself overly relying on something and being unable to work around that loss? Did you perhaps find yourself wanting something you didn't have? These are just some of the questions you should be asking yourself," Nezu said. "The teachers will take you home, for those whose parents aren't able to make it to pick you up," Nezu said, and started to list off names, saying their parents were here for them and waiting in the parking lot. The students left, leaving about half of them left. Teachers called off names, each teacher calling 2 names. Aizawa called his and Bakugo's names, and the 2 went with him to the car. Soon they were both in it, and Izuku didn't look over at Bakugo as they drove. It was silent, Bakugo surprisingly not saying anything. Izuku couldn't help but to remember what happened only a couple hours ago. how Bakugo said he surrendered. The way he admitted Izuku was a mountain and not a pebble. The way he tried to apologize. Did Bakugo truly regret things? Izuku didn't know. He wasn't sure what to make of it. He knew Bakugo was going through his own therapy and anger management, but Izuku couldn't believe it was really making that much of a difference. It had only been a couple of months. The car came to a stop, and Bakugo got out. Then it was just him and Aizawa. "Good job, kiddo," Aizawa said. Izuku gave a faint smile. "Thank you, Sensei," he said. There was a pause, the drive silent for a few minutes, and then Aizawa said, "If you ever flip to the other side, let me know ahead of time so I can join you," he said, flashing a toothy grin, tone joking. Izuku huffed out a laugh. "I have no plans on being a villain," he responded. "Good. I don't think Zashi would be too happy if I deflected anyways," Aizawa said. Izuku giggled, and the vehicle came to a stop. "See you tomorrow, Sensei," he said. Aizawa simply nodded. Izuku entered his home, finding it empty. Auntie Mitsuki was probably still taking care of his mom then. He went to the bathroom and started the shower up, washing himself with a nice long shower. After, he went to his room and laid on his bed, soon falling asleep for a short nap. An hour later he woke up and started to check around the house, doing some light tidying up. As he did, he let his mind think over the 3 days. They had been so nerve-wracking, doing his best to keep up that confidence he needed in order to lead his team properly. During his thoughts, his phone buzzed, and he saw it was the group chat. A message from Ida, his name still "Gotta Go Fast." "Shy Guy, would you like to join us? A few of us were talking about getting dinner together to discuss the Civil War. We understand if you can't." Izuku read the message, then back-read and saw a few of his classmates were going, while others had said they couldn't. "Sure, just message me the details." A few minutes later, the details came in, and Izuku saw he had a few hours before he had to leave. That evening he left, dressed in a t-shirt and some jeans, and met up with his classmates. They had a good dinner, discussing various strategies and things they had done, and helping each other to figure out where they could have done better. Izuku was also pleased to see that some 1B students had joined and been invited. Himiko giggled to herself, looking at the cute boy she had all tied up at her disposal. The boy was looking at her with frightened eyes. She cut his cheek. "You're so pretty," she cooed, watching the red drip down his cheek. "Get away from me, you psycho!" the boy yelled, squirming against the bonds. Himiko pouted. "But I want to be so close to you. I love you," she said, licking at the blood. She wanted to be so close, but they never seemed to want to be close to her. She would learn all there was to know about Nakaguri-ren. "Crazy-ass bitch!" the guy yelled, before screaming in pain, as Himiko bit his neck, giving a pleased sigh as she drank his blood. A flush was across her face as she drank her fill, giggling as she shifted and morphed into him. "Now I am you," she said, hugging him, and she got dressed in his clothes. "I'm going to find out so many things," she purred out, leaving the warehouse with a bounce in her step, going to where they lived, to the Nakaguri household. She would spend a few days with this family, learning all there was about this family and about her love so they could be even closer. As she was walking to her new home for the next week, she saw a news article. It was about her stain. Himiko squealed, hands in front of her face and wiggling, which drew odd looks from the passerbys. Whoops, she forgot she was supposed to be acting like Ren-chan. Still, she watched the article with eager eyes and saw that Stain was reported as killing heroes again, but this time he seemed to have an accomplice, a guy called Compress. Her eyes widened. Stain worked with others? Perhaps she should see about joining him. She wanted to be close to Stain, to become him, and life was too hard. She wanted to know all about him. Why he started to kill heroes, why he decided to purge the world of those he considered unworthy. She wanted to know what made a hero unworthy, what made them worthy. She looked at the screen. She might have to start seeking him out. But she still wanted to know about Ren-chan. He had been so nice to her and made her fall for him. But now that she was in love with him, he didn't like her anymore. Himiko didn't understand why. Why didn't he want her to be close to him? The disguised teen sighed, walking away as the news changed to something else. Why couldn't she find someone to love her like she loved them? Doyi grinned, tongue flickering out in the air as the boy handed over the pictures. He looked over them, fingers caressing over the green-haired boy. "Good job. I guess your little sister will be safe for another few days," he said, snickering as a free hand patted the girl's head, before pushing her towards the other. He went to his room that Overhaul had graciously given him and organized the photos on the board. It was so good having the photos. But he wanted the real thing. He would be patient one last time. He would lie in wait, and then, when his prey came close, he would spring from the grass. He would capture his Izuku and tame him. The boy, though, didn't know it yet, but he belonged to Doyi, and he would brand it into the other if he needed to. He would make sure his Izuku understood just who he belonged to. The boy just had to escape his clutches, develop some sort of quirk, which simply wouldn't do at all, which was why Doyi was quite eager in helping Overhaul to develop his cure. His Izuku was quirkless, so he needed to get rid of the quirk. The experiments were a bit painful, especially when Overhaul used his quirk on him, undoing him and then remaking him. But the end results, if they could turn his venom glands into something more than a light paralytic, to make it so he could produce their quirk-destroying drug, it would make it so easy to be able to create and sell the drug, and he knew better than to have thoughts of betraying Overhaul. He was stuck working for the man, but perhaps after they had the drug, and not just this temporary one, they would let him have Eri. She was cute and would be a fun toy to use, even if she already seemed broken already, not like his Izuku. The cutie was filled with so much fire and was growing so strong. Doyi couldn't wait to bring the boy down, to defile him and make him his, to taste his prize. He had been too patient before, but once he got the boy in his hands, he would stop at nothing to make him his. Doyi licked his lips, looking at the pictures, his hand trailing along himself as he started to fantasize about what he would do to his little Izuku. All right, listeners. This concludes Chapter 96 of Little Acts of Kindness. Chapter 97 will be up next. Definitely a lot of interesting components to this chapter. We get the emergence of Himiko being added in as a character, and some of the background information on what Stain has been up to, as well as a reemergence of Doyi, who had not been involved in the fic for a while, as we had been kind of focused on this past arc with the Civil War exercise. So I feel like this chapter really kind of brings a reemergence of some of the themes that have been taking place throughout this fic, and some of the risks to safety that take place as well. So please be sure to drop your thoughts, comments, reactions below for me. I'd love to hear what you all thought of this chapter, and as always, thank you all so much for listening.